Okay, so Spider-Girls, issue number 2. And, yeah, this is how you do an exciting cover. Unfortunately, it has nothing to do with the contents of the book, but still, I like it. Okay, so, yeah, to catch you up, the Inheritors are hunting down Spider People. Uh, Mayday Parker, so Spider-Girl of Earth 8982 and, Anna Corzon, Spider-Girl of Earth 616 have gone and they've met Mayday of Renew Your Vows, and who they're going to use her powers with some scrolls to try and defeat these inheritor things that are feeding on spider people. I don't know how they stay immortal. As I said in my first review, this ties into two big events, and I got them flipped in my head. I got Spider Island and Spider-Verse flipped in my head. I think because to me, logically, one builds up to the other. To me, logically, a logical order for that would be something called Spider Island, which sounds smaller in scale, would then build up to which would then build up to the next year doing an event called Spider-Verse, which would be much bigger and much more massive. So I got them in my mind that way. So last review is full of me making that mistake. Sorry, but Spider-Verse was the first big crossover with all the different dimensions of a spider people and stuff. And no, I am still not reading the main event because it's just too expensive, and and from what I understand, it's pretty much gone to hell anyway. That's what I understand from hearing people talk about it online. So yeah, these events, that's the trouble, is there's just too much in them. That's the thing. And it just calls back to too much stuff. Marvel, these events should be things that people can just jump into without knowing anything. For instance, I've given people the Secret War. I've loaned people the Secret Wars as their first like Marvel comic thing, and they can jump right into it. I mean, the original Secret Wars from the 80s. And you can jump right into that without knowing anything about these characters, really, and it was the big event of its time, and you can jump right into it, and it's fine. Today's events, not so much. So they don't really bring in new readers. They just put a burden on old readers, and they cause the storylines that you're invested in to come to a halt. So I'm not really sure what the point of these events is. I still say this is a good setup for an ongoing. You could make a cartoon out of this, even, I think. Have there be these inheritors, and every once in a while you have the Spider-Girls jumping between dimensions to keep these sacred scrolls out of the hands of the inheritors and finding more as they go along. That's a good, to me, that's a good setup for an animated series that has like unlimited possibilities, because whenever things started to get dull, you could just jump to another universe, have them go after some more scrolls in another universe or something. But anyway, so yeah, Annie's thinking about there. So they do, so Annie's parents just left to take part in the big event, which I understand they don't really have any impact on because Joe Quesada hates Mary Jane and Peter together, and so yeah. So anyway, yeah, they decide that they need to see Norman Osborn, who, thanks to the events of Renew Your Vows, got some spider DNA spliced into him. Got some of Annie's spider DNA spliced into him. And now has a bunch of extra arms thanks to what's it? Sinister from the X-Men. And so, do you know what back in your world I mean? So yeah, then we get into the whole love story with Mayday and their version and her version of Norman Osborn, which he's significantly less buff here than he is in her book, where he was like a giant tank. I mean, he might have been bigger than Venom in that book. But yeah, this modern artwork has him significantly smaller. I'm not. I can't remember exactly what happened to him, or maybe it was covered in one of the crossovers I did. As I said, I have to. I'm in the middle of going through and rereading everything with Mayday in it, so I don't know everything that happened yet. But yeah, they go. They go to visit, and here we see how one of the weaknesses of this, Jody Hauser actually turns it into a strength. The weakness of this premise is that Renew Your Vows really is a cheapo version of them trying to get around Joe Quesada and his absolute dictate to get rid of Spider-Man's marriage. His absolute dictate that back in Spider-Verse, Peter Parker had to die so that there wouldn't be a married Peter Parker and Mary Jane out there. He has this absolute dictate as long as he's with Marvel, and he runs and make no mistake, Joe Quesada runs everything creative to do with Marvel Comics. So they created this universe to sort of do an end run around him, since he couldn't even stand Spider-Girl's alternate universe, and he had just destroyed that. So in Spider-Verse, they created this other universe, but it really started out as a knockoff of the Mayday Parker Spider universe, and now it could come off as even more of that now that Annie has aged up to being a teenager, just like Mayday is. But they use that as a storytelling strength now, because now Mayday is reflecting, and we're seeing her affected by this, because this is so close to her world. Of course it is. Behind the scenes we know why, but here we get some very touching scenes in this book of her being reflective about how it looks like hers did before all the horrible stuff happened, and how that affects her. But it's not gonna deter her from doing the right thing and stopping the villains. And what's more, I think it fuels her determination to keep what happened in her world from happening here, and to keep Annie from having to go for the same thing. In fact, I don't know. I never really followed Anna Kazan, or how whatever you say her name is, the 616 Spider-Girl, because to me it was just, oh, they're doing a knockoff for the 616 universe that has nothing to do with Peter and MJ's marriage. Big whoop. They want a Spider-Girl, but it has to please Joe Quesada. So I never really got into her enough to get it. But here's the thing. I like her in this book. She's fine, but she kind of feels like a third wheel. I know that she came in with Mayday, but this whole thing really does feel like Mayday and Annie Mae's story. So yeah, to me, you could probably eliminate her from this story, and that would be it. So you have a couple of villains, but of course, since they've apparently tracked Spider-Woman, Spider-Girl, and Spiderling. So, and then when they meet up with Harry, they find all the other people who Sinister was. They find out that then he secures them a room to do their little thing. And they find out that there were a lot of other people experimented on by Sinister, and he has them locked away. He has them locked away as best he can. They're all in very rough shape and basically animals. But when, and again, this is another hard moment for Mayday, because apparently she's seeing an alternate version of somebody that she cares a lot about in this other universe. And then Annie, when she touches the scroll, she can see things better, and I think it's because her parents are in the other dimension with the main fight, because they're the ones coming through clearest when she sees through to the other dimension. But it also seems to trigger something that hurts her and then causes Harry to turn into a complete monster, and he jumps for them, and then he goes through, and they can't tell who is who because they're all just giant spiders. And then the two villains come in, and that's to be continued. And I really like this, and I think it's a shame that there's only one issue left, because this is really building to something. Marvel, you could have a really good ongoing series, please. Joe Quesada, put aside your hatred for the Spider family for 1 minute and realize that you could have an absolutely bang-up stellar series. Keep this artist on it. Keep the artists that are on this on it, because this is probably the best looking book Marvel is doing right now. I know it's not perfect, but it's better looking than anything else I've been seeing from Marvel lately. And keep this artist here. Keep Jody Houser on it. And just have their speed dimension hopping adventures of these three Spider-Girls and how they affect each other. And deal with the fallout of the events you created in detail. You created these big tragic events because you wanted big tragic, not a family and a future. Well, if you're going to do big and tragic, then go all the way and do it right. And explore in depth what the effect that has. And you can use this series to do it. Do a spin-off of this. Do what you did with Renew Your Vows. Take this from being a side series of the big event and make it its own standalone book. So anyway, yeah, I'm giving this a 7 out of 10. This was very good, and I can't wait to see the final issue, okay? And now some housekeeping. I know I haven't been around much lately. That's because I've been getting a new job. But now that that's settled, I'm going to be doing regular videos now. I'm going to be trying to get an upload done every day, or at least a couple times a week. And yeah, uploads should be coming regularly, and we should get back to reviewing Renew Your Vows, Spider-Girl, and other comics that other reviewers tend to ignore that I enjoy. That's my main point with this channel, is just to draw attention to comics that I like that other reviewers tend to ignore, like this one. So anyway, it's well worth the read, and thanks for watching. See you next time, guys.